50 kilometers of black water separate you from the nearest solid ground. Beneath you lies the Arctic Ocean, 1 kilometer deep. The water temperature is -2 degrees. It does not freeze only because of its high salinity, but for a human being, it is liquid ice. You are in the center of this frozen silence, trapped in a narrow boat whose frame is covered with tanned walrus skin. The thickness of this skin is only 3 millimeters. 3 millimeters. Exactly that is what separates your warm blood from instant death. Imagine this situation. Your vessel, a kayak barely 50 centimeters wide, is narrower than your shoulders. It is so unstable that it requires constant balance control, even when you are just sitting. A clumsy movement, a sharp turn of the head, and you will capsize. In such water, the heart stops from thermal shock. In 180 seconds, the chances of survival are 0. Now, imagine the worst. You have been here for 2 full days already. Your muscles burn like fire. Your eyes water from the icy wind. Your body demands rest. You need to sleep, not for 1 hour, but for the entire night. Right here, in this unstable shell, in the middle of drifting ice fields the size of a football field. How can you disconnect your consciousness when your life depends on constant balance every second? How do you force the brain to sleep knowing that beneath you is an abyss and that predators are prowling around you, smelling living warmth from kilometers away? For modern man, this sounds like madness or a sophisticated torture. But for a young hunter named Auku, this was a common night, the 3rd night of his first great hunt in the open ocean. Today, you will learn the secrets that the Inuit and the coastal Chukchi kept for millennia. The survival technology that allowed them to sleep in conditions where anyone else would have died of fear even before sunset. We will walk this path together with Auku, from choosing the ice block to plunging into the dreams that only come at the edge of life and death. But before Auku closes his eyes, we must answer one question. A question without which this story has no meaning. Why? What force compelled these people to distance themselves so far from the coast into the death zone from where not everyone returned? To understand why Auku was here, first one must understand where and when this madness occurs. Geographically, we are on the west coast of Greenland in the Disco Bay area. The season is June. It is the time of the midnight sun. But here, above the Arctic Circle, this concept takes on a different, frightening meaning. The sun has not set below the horizon for 3 weeks. It circles the sky, barely touching the water with its lower edge, turning 24 hours into one endless, maddening day. Time boundaries are blurred. The body ceases to understand when to sleep and when to be awake. But it is precisely this unrelenting light that triggers the Arctic's most magnificent biological mechanism. The ice begins to retreat. An explosion of life occurs in the water, and plankton blooms. Behind the plankton, towards the very edge of the melting ice, giants rush. Bowhead whales, a pod of narwhals, and millions of seals. This window of life is open for only 6 to 8 weeks. For Auku's tribe, this is not just a hunting season. It is a matter of survival for the entire clan. Either they fill the ice cellars with meat now, or in the winter, the elders and children in the settlement will begin to die. Hunger here is not an abstract concept, but a neighbor always waiting behind the threshold. That is why the hunters do not leave for just a day. They go on multi-day raids, chasing the retreating ice to where the water is boiling with fish and game. But the instrument on which Auku went out into the ocean deserves special attention. If you think a kayak is just a boat, you are mistaken. It is perhaps the most perfect exoskeleton created by man from natural materials. Look at it through the eyes of an engineer. Length about 6 meters, width critically small, only 45 to 50 centimeters. This is already narrower than the shoulders of an adult man. In such a boat, it is impossible to sit relaxed. You cannot turn sideways, you cannot bend your knees, you cannot stand up. You do not sit in a kayak. You wear it on yourself like a tight glove. The construction of this vessel is a miracle of scarcity. There are no trees in Greenland. The entire frame is assembled from driftwood that the ocean brought from 1,000 kilometers away from Siberia or Canada. Every splinter, every bent rib here is worth its weight in gold. The elements of the frame are not glued or nailed together. A nail rusts and breaks the wood in the cold. All the parts are tied with elastic straps made of tendons and whalebone. Why? Because the ocean is vibration. A rigid structure in these waves would simply fall apart. The lashed frame breathes. It bends under the impact of the waves, mimicking the movement of the water like the living spine of a fish. The covering is a separate technology, bordering on magic. Auku's kayak is covered with the skins of the bearded seal. This is leather of incredible strength, but it has a vulnerability: the seams. Any needle hole in the water is a path to death. To make the kayak waterproof, the women of the tribe used a technique that would make a modern person's skin crawl. Seams were not just sewn. Before working, the women chewed the coarse leather of the edges for hours, mixing it with their saliva and turning the fibers into a sticky mass. When such a seam dried, it became a monolith. Moreover, a blind stitch was used. The needle entered the thickness of the leather but did not pierce it all the way through. Not a single drop of icy water could find its way inside. But the main detail that allowed Auku to live in this boat for weeks is the twi'lek. This is not just a jacket. It is a waterproof anorak and hood that was tightly laced around the hunter's face, and most importantly, hermetically sealed around the cockpit rim of the kayak. At that moment, man and boat became a single airtight organism. If a wave overturned the hunter, the water did not get inside. He remained dry. Relying on Archimedes' principle and his own paddle, he performed an Eskimo roll and returned to a vertical position. Without the twi'lek, any overturn would mean instant flooding and death. So why did Auku go 50 kilometers away from the shore? Why not hunt in the safe fjords? The answer is cruel: competition and biology. Near the shore where it is safe, the elders and teenagers hunt. There, the prey is frightened and scarce. Real life teems where it is frightening, at the edge of the pack ice. It is precisely there that female ringed seals go to give birth to their pups. It is precisely there that the whales feed. And there is another reason: status. In Inuit culture, a man is not the one who knows how to throw a harpoon, but the one capable of enduring the loneliness of the great water. The phrase, "he sleeps in the kayak," is the highest praise. It is a certificate of maturity. It means the man has conquered his fear. And fear here has a physical dimension. The water temperature is -1.8 degrees Celsius. In such water, an unprotected person loses consciousness in 15 minutes. Death from cold shock occurs even earlier. The very first breath of icy water causes a laryngeal spasm. Error is not forgiven. Last season, when the ice suddenly closed, cutting off the path back, 3 hunters from a neighboring settlement did not return. Their kayaks were found 1 month later, empty, crushed by the ice like an eggshell. The ocean simply digested them. Auku knows this story. He knows the widows of these hunters, but now he tries not to think of them. Before going out to sea, the old grandfather placed an amulet in his hand, a yellow polar bear tusk polished by time on a leather cord. He said a strange thing then. "Remember, grandson, in the kayak, you do not sleep like a man in a yoronga. You must learn to sleep like a seal by the breathing hole. Your body rests, but part of your brain is always listening to the ice. If you sleep completely, you will not wake up." Back then, Auku only nodded, not understanding the essence of how one can sleep halfway. But now, as the shore vanished into the fog many hours ago, the meaning of those words begins to reach him through the pain in his muscles, and Auku stops rowing. Around him is silence, broken only by the heavy breathing of the ocean. Slowly and majestically, ice floes drift by like ghost ships. Behind the hunter's back, lashed to the deck with straps, swings the carcass of a ringed seal caught in the morning. It is a good sign. The piece of raw mantack, whale skin and blubber he ate sits with a pleasant weight in his stomach. It is fuel, it is heat. The sun hangs above the horizon, drenching the water in crimson light. It seems to be pondering whether to fall into the water or rise again. His eyes are closing, his body demands to shut down. It is time to find a place to sleep. But where can one find a bed where everything moves, melts, and is ready to kill you? The first thing Auku feels upon stopping his rowing is the silence. Here it is not empty, it is heavy, oppressive, tangible. At home in the settlement, there is never silence. There, one always hears the barking of sled dogs, the creaking of sleds, the laughter of children, or the voices of women working the skins. Here, the world narrowed down to the splash of water against the kayak's hull and a distant sound unlike anything else. A grinding. It comes from all sides. A dull, low hum that turns into a high, almost human-like groan. The elders say, this is how the spirits of the icebergs and Inuit talk to each other. But Auku also knows the prosaic reason. It is thousands of tons of frozen water rubbing against each other, breaking under the pressure of ocean currents. It is precisely this chorus that Auku must listen to in order to choose his lodging. Finding the right ice flow in the ocean is harder than building a house on land. Land is motionless. Ice is treacherous, changeable, and deadly dangerous. Auku scans the ice field, rejecting options one after another. In his head, a complex algorithm works, passed down by dozens of generations of ancestors. The first criterion is size. That flow, looking like a table, is too small, 10 by 10 meters. It seems cozy, but it is a trap. At night, when the swell rises, a wave will strike its edge, and the flow might crack from the tension right under the kayak. The other one, a huge ice field stretching beyond the horizon, is also unsuitable. If the wind changes at night and drives this icy continent into the open ocean, Auku simply will not have enough time to go around it in his tiny vessel. He will find himself in icy captivity, cut off from the path home. He needs an island roughly 30 by 30 meters in size, massive enough to dampen the waves, but compact enough to remain maneuverable. The second criterion is color. To an ordinary person, ice is just white. For a hunter, ice has 50 shades. And each one of them is a traffic light signal. White sugary ice is young, one-year-old ice. It has too many air bubbles. It is loose and weak. You cannot tether yourself to it. The rope will cut through its edge like a knife through butter, and during the night, the boat will be swept away. Ice with a greenish or brownish tint at the waterline is an alarm signal. The color means the presence of algae, which means the flow is rotting from below. It is brittle, ready to crumble into mush from any impact. Auku's eyes look for something else. They look for blueness, a deep, rich aquamarine color, glowing from within. Only multi-year pack ice has such a color. This piece of frozen water has drifted in the ocean for decades. Winds and frosts have blown all the air out of it. Pressure has compressed the snowflakes into a monolith, with a hardness rivaling a diamond. Blue ice is reliability. It will not crack. It will withstand the strike of a storm. You can drive a harpoon into it, and it will hold firmer than a granite cliff. The third criterion is shape and draft. Auku paddles up to a suitable block and peers into the transparent black water. He needs to see the roots of the ice. The part above water may be flat and beautiful, but if there is no massive keel under the water, the flow is a spinner. A gust of wind will flip it over along with the tethered kayak. The hunter looks for a flow whose underwater part is 3 to 4 times larger than the part above water. Such a giant sits deep and firmly in the water. Small surface swells do not bother it. It moves only with the deep, calm currents. Additionally, the surface must be free of ridges, piles of ice blocks. Ridges act like sails. The wind will catch onto them, spinning the flow and creating whirlpools that could pull the kayak under the ice. The fourth criterion is neighbors. The ocean is crowded. Flows move constantly. Auku assesses the distance to the nearest blocks. If the neighbors are closer than 20 meters, it is a death zone. At night during sleep, currents can bring two flows together. If the kayak ends up between them, it will be crushed into splinters along with the person in a fraction of a second. The sound will be faint, like the snapping of a dry twig, but no one will hear it. But open space is also dangerous. If there are no other floes around, it means there are strong waves and wind here. Balance is needed, a safe distance. And finally, the last test. The test for direction. Auku takes a small wood splinter from under the lacing on the deck. He throws it into the water next to the side and goes still, not breathing so that his breath does not disrupt the experiment. He watches where the splinter drifts relative to the ice, where the water flows, toward the shore or into the open ocean. In the Arctic, currents can change direction twice a day due to tides. If he tethers himself to a floe that is being carried west, away from land, in the morning he will wake up at the point of no return. He will never be able to return. On one of those nights, he grew lazy. He tied the kayak with only one line, driving the harpoon shallowly into the loose upper layer of snow. This will do, he thought, longing to close his eyes as soon as possible. In the middle of the night, the wind rose. The ice did not withstand the jerk, and a piece broke off. The harpoon flew out without a sound. Suluk's kayak was silently carried into the open sea while the hunter slept the deep sleep of an exhausted man. He was found 3 days later, 50 kilometers from the hunting site. He was alive. He was sitting in the kayak, upright, with eyes wide open and full of horror. But his legs, due to immobility in the icy water and the lack of movement, lost their circulation. Suluk's toes all froze. Black, dead. They never felt warmth again. He survived, but he could never go out on the ice again. He became a cripple, a man who lives on the shore and gazes longingly at the horizon, a man who slept away his destiny. Auku dismisses this image, shaking his head. He looks at his harpoon. It is driven in properly. The stone lies securely, like a faithful dog. The kayak is tied. The ocean has accepted his anchor. The outer perimeter of protection is built. A wall of ice shields him from the wind. The ropes hold him against the current. Now the hardest part remains, to prepare the one inside. The kayak is tied, the anchor holds. For now, the greatest transformation must occur. To an outside observer, it might look like a boat, but for the hunter, it is a life capsule. It is his shell. From the outside, it seems small, but inside, the kayak is cleverly designed. Its frame has no crossbeams in the center, only at the bow and stern. This means Auku can stretch his legs into the bow all the way to the end and lean his back against the aft curve of the deck. Yes, sitting here upright as if in a chair is impossible. The width of the cockpit is only half a meter, barely enough for the hips, but reclining as if in a lounge chair is possible. And after 10 hours of continuous paddling, this posture seems the height of bliss. Almost comfortable. Almost. Now the construction of the nest begins. In the Arctic desert, warmth is not given for free. It must be preserved, stolen from the wind, and hidden inside the boat. Auku takes his main treasure from the hermetic cargo hatch, the skins. The first layer is the foundation of his sleep, caribou, the northern reindeer. Auku spreads it on the bottom of the kayak, right over the wooden ribs of the frame. Thick, dense. It smells not of the sea, but of the earth, dry moss, tundra, and smoke. It was smoked for a long time over the hearth so as not to rot from the dampness. That smell of smoke here, amidst the sterile sea air, hits the nose like a reminder of home. The reindeer is a sleeper's best friend. Its fur is unique. Each hair is hollow inside, like a macaroni, filled with air. And air is the best insulator in the universe. When Auku lies on this skin, he is not just lying on fur, he is lying on a cushion of air. It is elastic, springing under his shoulder blades, smoothing the rigidity of the wooden keelson. The second layer is protection, ringed seal. Auku places it higher, under his head and shoulders. There, where protection is most important, it feels different to the touch. Stiff, smooth, cold. It smells of salt and fish, but it has a property the reindeer lacks. It does not fear water.
If a wave splashes over the side at night, or condensation rolls down the walls, the seal will not get wet.
It will shed the moisture, keeping his neck dry. And finally, the third layer, the blanket. Auku unfolds a light, almost weightless coverlet sewn from 30 skins of the polar hare. This is the most delicate thing on board. Hare fur is so fine and dense that it retains heat better than any down. Auku's mother sewed this blanket all through last winter, sitting by the oil lamp. Every stitch was made with a prayer for her son. When Auku pulls this fluffy cloud over himself, covering up to his chin, a wave of memory washes over him. The smell of the home hearth, the laughter of his younger brother playing on the floor, the warmth of a woman's hands. For a second, his heart tightens with longing. He wants to drop everything, turn the kayak around, and paddle back to people, to the warmth, away from this icy loneliness. But Auku drives the thought away. He is a man, he is a provider, he is here for them. The nest is ready. Now, the body armor. A hunter's clothing is not just fabric, it is a spacesuit. He is wearing an anorak parka. It is double layered. The inner fur is turned toward the body, the outer toward the outside. Between them, another air chamber is created. Auku checks the lacing. This is critically important. He tightens the straps at the waist, at the wrists, around his face. No gaps. Frost is like water, it flows wherever there is a hole. Even a millimeter of exposed skin on the neck, and over the night, the cold will suck all the heat out of him. Special attention to the hood. Its trim is made of wolverine fur. It is the only fur in the world on which frost from breathing does not form. In any other hood, in an hour the face would turn into an ice mask. The wolverine, however, remains dry and soft, maintaining the microclimate around the face. Now, the feet. Grandfather always said, "Feet are your life, grandson."
If your feet are frozen, you are dead,
even if your heart is still beating. Auku wears kayaks, high boots made of bearded sealskin. Their soles do not slip even on wet ice, but the secret of warmth is not in the leather. Auku slides his hand inside the boot, checking the insulation. Inside is a thick layer of dry grass, sedge. Grass works like a sponge. It absorbs the sweat that is inevitably secreted by the feet and wicks it away from the skin. And it holds heat. The grass is dry, crunching under his fingers. Good, it means the toes will not turn black at night. The mittens are huge, sewn from polar bear skin. They hang from his neck on a sturdy leather strap. This is the law. Mittens must not be placed on the knees or the side. Drop one into the water and you lose your hands. For the night, Auku does not put them on. He does something craftier. He pulls his arms inside the sleeves of his parka, like a turtle pulls its legs into its shell, and crosses them on his chest, pressing his palms against his warm body. Thus a closed circuit of circulation is created. The hands warm the body warms the hands. The final touch of hermetization is the skirt. Auku tightens the tulik, a waterproof belt made of intestines around the cockpit rim of the kayak. A click as it tightens. That's it. Now he and the kayak are one, a single organism. If he flips over in his sleep, the water will not get inside. If he doesn't flip, random splashes will not enter the bedroom. But most importantly, the heat generated by his body now goes nowhere. It circulates inside the boat, heating the air under the deck. The kayak starts to work like a thermos. But Auku has one more secret. A little trick not found in books. He reaches into his chest and pulls an object from a pouch around his neck. It is a common stone, a smooth sea pebble the size of a fist. All day while he paddled, this stone lay on his chest under all the layers of clothing, right over his heart.
It has absorbed the heat of his working body. It is hot, almost burning.
Now that the muscles have stopped working and started to cool, Auku moves this living heat accumulator lower to his abdomen, in the solar plexus area. He tucks it into a special soft suede pouch and presses it to his belly under the parka.
The hot stone begins to give back the heat, slowly and carefully. It will warm the center of the body, driving warm blood to the extremities for several more hours. By morning, the stone will cool, and that cold will be his alarm clock. Time to get up, otherwise you'll freeze. Everything is ready. Auku has settled in. The wind no longer bites his skin. Under his back is the soft reindeer moss and skins. In his feet is the dry heat of the grass. On his belly, the hot heart of the stone. He is warm, almost comfortable. An incredible feeling of home in the middle of the hostile ice desert. One last thing remains, the safety check. Auku, already closing his eyes, checks his tools by touch. The harpoon lies on the right on the deck, secured by straps but ready for a jerk. The knife is on his belt, its bone handle warm, the paddle under his left hand. The kayak is a cradle, but a cradle that swings over the abyss. At night, anything can happen here. A bear might come, the ice might crack, a walrus might attack, piercing the bottom with its tusks. And one must be ready to wake up in a fraction of a second and fight for life, breaking out of the warm skins to meet death. But now there is silence. Auku exhales deeply. The parka rustles. For the first time in 40 hours, he allows his eyelids to close in a boat in the middle of the ocean, among drifting ice floes. For the first time in his life, he lets go of control and trusts himself to the water. Auku goes still. His body adopts the position that will be his world for the next few hours. Inside the tight cockpit, hidden from outside eyes, he lies reclining. His feet, in fur boots, are stretched far forward into the narrow bow of the kayak, resting against a wooden rib. His knees are slightly and relaxedly bent. They must not be straightened completely, otherwise blood flow would be disrupted. With his back, he leans against the aft curve of the deck. The angle of inclination is about 45 degrees. It is not a bed, but not a chair either. It is the posture of an astronaut in a launch seat. His head is tilted back, his nape sinking into the folded sealskin. His neck relaxes for the first time in 2 days. Auku's hands are hidden under the hair blanket, crossed on his chest, but they are not empty. Right on top of the blanket, pressed by his forearms to his belly, lies the paddle. This is a critically important detail. The paddle here is not just a tool, it is a balancer. It is a gyroscope. Even in sleep, if the kayak starts to tilt to the left, the weight of the paddle lying across the body will shift, and Auku will feel that pressure through his sleep. His body will reflexively jerk to the right, restoring balance without even waking up. It is an autopilot built into his instincts. Now that the body is fixed, the senses are sharpened to the limit. Vision is switched off, and the world begins to enter his consciousness through his ears. The first sound that fills the entire space of the skull is the water. It is here, 10 centimeters from the ear. Splash, pause. Splash, pause. The waves are very small, no higher than a palm. They are born not from the wind, which has almost died down, but from the very movement of the ice fields. Giant floes drift, turning slowly, pushing the water with their underwater sides. The water carries these vibrations further until they meet the hull of the kayak. Plop, shh. Plop, shh. The kayak responds to every touch. It rises a couple of centimeters, sinks, tilts to the left, straightens. This movement is not chaotic. It has its own rhythm, complex but cyclical. Forward, backward, left, right, and a barely noticeable rotation. It is the perfect cradle, ancient as the ocean itself. But there is another sound. Somewhere in the distance, about 200 meters to the right, a low, vibrating hum is heard. Woo, woo, as if someone huge and infinitely tired were moaning under the water. Auku doesn't open his eyes. He knows this sound. It is the song of the ice.
Two huge floes have touched edges. They rub against each other with colossal pressure, grinding crystals into dust. This sound might frighten a novice, but for the hunter, it is white noise. It means the ice is breathing, that the ocean is alive. A different sound is dangerous, a sharp, dry crack like a rifle shot. That would mean the floe has split, but for now, there is only grinding. Monotonous, lulling, viscous. Life is woven into this chorus. Over his head, cutting the air with its wings, an auklet passes, a small black and white Arctic bird. Pee, pee, pee. A thin, high squeak quickly recedes. Most likely, it is hurrying to its colony on the cliffs, to which there is still much and much flight. Somewhere on the horizon, the guttural squawk of a large seagull, the glaucous gull, is heard. It has found fish or is calling its kin, but the sound is distant. Muffled by distance and fog, it does not disturb. It only emphasizes the scale of loneliness. And between these rare sounds lies silence. In the city, we do not know what silence is. For us, it is just a pause between the noise of cars and the hum of the refrigerator. Here, silence is the very foundation of creation. It is dense, thick, tangible. It is a space filled with nothing, only water, ice, and sky. Silence presses against the eardrums. In it, you begin to hear what is usually hidden. The thumping of your own heart echoing in your temples, the rustle of blood in the vessels, the creaking of joints. This silence forces you to listen to your own breathing, and it involuntarily adjusts to the rhythm of the ocean. Tactile sensations change. The body begins to spread out, and Auku feels the soft elasticity of the reindeer skins against his back. The rigid wooden frame of the boat no longer presses. Every wave striking the bottom of the kayak is transmitted through the thin skin directly into the spine. The water lifts the bow of the boat. Auku's back is pressed tighter into the support. The water lowers the bow. His back relaxes slightly. A feeling of weightlessness arises in the stomach, a constant micro-movement, an infinite massage. The tense muscles of the lower back, which held him upright all day, begin to soften. Surrendering to this rhythm, the temperature contrast increases sleepiness. Under the hair blanket, it is warm, almost hot. His own body works like a stove, heated by the stone on his belly. The fur retains this heat, creating a tropical microclimate. But the face is open to all winds. The wind is weak, but it is there. Cool, about 5 to 7 degrees above zero. Moist, it gently blows on the cheeks, cools the tip of the nose, and brushes through the eyelashes. This contrast, the body in a hot cocoon, the face in the Arctic freshness, creates a strange, intoxicating feeling. The head remains clear, but the body becomes heavy, foreign. Auku takes a deep breath through his nose. The smells. There are no smells of civilization here. No gasoline, no dust, no perfume. The main note is salt. The sharp, iodine, metallic smell of icy water. It clears the lungs. To it is mixed the smell of the kayak's wet leather, slightly sour, fishy, animal-like. The smell of fur is dry, warm, and dusty, combined with the smell of his own body, the sweat of a working day, the grease smeared on his face, the smoke from the fire of a distant settlement ingrained in his clothes. All this together creates a unique bouquet. To a stranger, it might seem strange, but to Auku, this smell is the smell of home. It calms better than any incense. Auku closes his eyes, but there is no darkness. The Arctic summer knows no night. Even through tightly closed eyelids, light breaks through. The sun hangs low above the horizon. It is not bright, it is pale, reddish, as if sick or tired. But its light is enough to see a thick crimson glow through the skin of the eyelids. Auku opens his eyes for a second to check the horizon. The sky is gray-blue, clear, without a single cloud. At the junction of water and sky hangs a band of mist, frost steam.
It is ghostly, whitish. The ice floes around seem like white islands in the black oil of the water. They slowly waltz, circling around their axis. The world has frozen, yet it continues to move. Auku closes his eyes again. He tries to relax, but sleep does not come immediately. An ancient part of the brain, the reptilian brain responsible for survival, sounds the alarm. It knows that sleeping here is unnatural, dangerous. Do not close your eyes, instinct screams. You are vulnerable. What if a floe drifts too close and crushes the hull? What if the knot comes undone? What if the current has changed? Thoughts race, disrupting his breathing. His heart begins to accelerate. Breathe, Auku commands himself. He remembers his grandfather's lessons. Breathe like a seal at the breathing hole, slowly, deeply. Inhale, the belly inflates, pushing the paddle. Exhale, the belly falls. The seal is the master of sleep. It sleeps in the water vertically and sleeps with only half of its brain. One hemisphere rests, the other listens to the splashes of water and the footsteps of a bear. Auku tries to enter this state, not to disconnect completely, not to fall into a black hole, but to drift on the edge, to doze. To calm the mind, he begins to count the waves. One wave, a pitch of the kayak forward, 1. Second wave, a pitch backward, 2. The rhythm is uneven, living. Sometimes the waves are frequent and staccato, sometimes long and viscous. But if you count for a long time, a pattern appears. The ocean breathes in series. Approximately once every 20 pitches, a large wave comes. It is a bit stronger, but more gently lifts the bow of the kayak like a mother's hand rocking a cradle. Auku counts, synchronizing the count with his heartbeats. 20, 40, 60. Somewhere at the 100th pitch, the eyelids become leaden, the body ceases to be felt, and thoughts begin to tangle, turning into fragments of dreams. And suddenly, out of nowhere, comes a sudden, deafening crack, like an explosion. Auku jerks awake. Eyes wide open, heart pounding in his throat, hammering in his temples. His hands reflexively grab the paddle shaft, squeezing it until the knuckles are white. What is it? Where is the danger? He feverishly peers into the twilight distance, turning his head. The kayak sways from his sudden movements. There, about 50 meters to the left, he sees the cause. A large, flat ice floe, similar to the one he is tethered to, has just died. It split exactly in half under its own weight. The two halves slowly, majestically drift apart, revealing their interior. Between them boils black water, from which thick white steam rises. The heat of the ocean meets the frosty air. Auku exhales. A small cloud of steam flies from his mouth. It is not his floe. His blue fortress is intact. His harpoon is in place. Everything is in order. The ocean simply reminded him who is the master here. The adrenaline released into the blood slowly dissolves, leaving behind even greater fatigue. The trembling in his hands subsides. His heart is still beating fast, 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 like a caught bird, but his mind has already calmed down. Danger was near, but it passed by. Auku leans back again on the sealskin. He adjusts the shifted blanket and arranges the paddle more comfortably on his belly. Now he knows. He will not fall into a deep sleep. His hearing will remain a sentinel. He closes his eyes. Again the splash. Again the swaying. An hour passes, maybe 2. Auku does not know. Time flows differently here. It is measured not in minutes, but in the breaths of the ocean. He dozes, wakes up from the splash of a fish, checks the horizon with one eye, dozes again. And suddenly, unnoticed by himself, he realizes one thing. The sounds have become part of the dream. The cold has receded. He sleeps lightly, not like at home, but he sleeps, suspended over the abyss. What happens to Auku next is hard to call sleep in the usual sense of a city dweller. It is not a disconnection, but a transition into another state of matter, a strange, borderline feeling. Auku is not asleep, but he is not awake either. He is suspended in a gray zone in the narrow crack between reality and non-existence. His body is relaxed. The muscles have become soft as wax. The eyelids are closed, and the eyeballs beneath them have stopped darting. But his ears hear. They work like locators tuned to specific frequencies. They filter the noise of the waves, letting it pass as background, but are ready to react to any new sound. His hands, crossed on his chest under the skins, continue to feel the weight of the paddle. The slightest change in pressure, the slightest tilt of the kayak, and the signal will go to the brain, bypassing consciousness. Part of his brain rests, submerged in the darkness of recovery. Another part stands guard like a watchdog dozing at the threshold, but lifting an ear if a twig snaps. This is not an effort of will. Auku does not force himself to be vigilant. It happens on its own. His body, obeying ancient instincts, has switched to emergency survival mode. Scientists of the 21st century, studying the brains of marine mammals, will call this the phenomenon of unihemispheric sleep. They will discover with surprise in laboratories that dolphins, orcas, and whales sleep exactly like this. Both hemispheres of their brain never shut down simultaneously. Otherwise, they would simply choke and drown. One hemisphere sleeps, dreams, and restores neurons. The second is awake, controls breathing, watches for predators, and holds the course. After a couple of hours, they switch roles. In modern man, this ability has atrophied due to lack of need. We sleep in safe concrete boxes behind steel doors. But in extreme conditions where the price of carelessness is death, genetic memory unpacks this archive. The Inuit and the coastal Chukchi knew about this thousands of years before the appearance of tomographs. They called it simply dozing like a seal. And now Auku has become a seal. His physiology changes, adapting to the rhythm of the ocean. Breathing slows to the limit. If during rowing, Auku breathed frequently and hungrily, now his chest rises rarely, barely perceptibly. Inhale, a long pause, exhale. Instead of 15 times a minute, he takes only 8 or 9 deep, measured breaths. This rhythm synchronizes with the swaying. The wave lifts the kayak. Inhale. The wave lowers it. Exhale. He no longer breathes air, he breathes the sea. The heart, this tireless motor, also reduces its revs. The pulse falls. 60 beats, 50, 48. The beats become rare but powerful, echoing. The heart saves energy, pumping thick, oxygenated blood in an economical mode. This phenomenon is known as the diving reflex, but here it works on the surface. Blood drains from the skin, going deep to the vital organs, and Auku turns into a thermos. The stove of his body is turned down to the minimum. He does not generate excess heat so as not to waste calories, but he does not freeze either. Subcutaneous fat and multi-layered clothing keep the core body temperature unchanged, although the skin temperature drops by a couple of degrees. This is the norm. This is adaptation. Cold is no longer the enemy. It is the habitat. In this state, time loses its linear meaning, and Auku does not know how long he has been lying like this. A minute, an hour, half the night. The dial in his head has been erased. Only cycles remain. Inhale, exhale. A pitch forward, a pitch backward. The sound of a wave, silence. The sound of a wave. His existence has turned into a pendulum, and this monotony does not drive him crazy. On the contrary, it calms, hypnotizes, dissolves the I into the huge we of the ocean. But this state has a dark side. At the border of sleep and wakefulness, when logical control weakens, they begin to come. Sensory deprivation hallucinations. Images are unclear, fluid as water. Does Auku see? No, he does not see with his eyes. He feels a presence with his skin. It seems to him that someone huge is moving underwater, right under the thin bottom of his kayak. Something dark, ancient, the size of a whale, but not a whale. It slowly swims in the depths, and from its movement, the water becomes thicker. Auku goes still. His heart skips a beat. Imagination paints giant tentacles or the open maw of a sea monster from legends. But nothing happens.
The shadow vanishes as silently as it appeared. Perhaps it was a hallucination of a tired brain, a play of phosphorescent plankton, or maybe a beluga. The white ghost of polar waters slipped beneath him, studying the strange object on the surface, or a Greenland seal. They often surface at night to look at the stars. Then come the sounds. The wind wandering through the ridges of the ice floe begins to change its tone. At first it is just a whistle, then a whisper. And suddenly Auku distinctly hears a voice, a quiet, distant, but painfully familiar female voice. Ak, Ak. It's his mother. She stayed in the settlement hundreds of kilometers away. Or is it a spirit? Auku, with an effort of will, overcoming the leaden weight of his eyelids, cracks his eyes open. No one. Only empty ice floes, like tombstones, and black water. He understands that it is the wind playing with the ice edges, creating acoustic illusions. Or maybe it really is the spirits. The Inuit believe the ocean is inhabited by the tornit, the souls of deceased hunters who did not find the path to the heavenly tundra. They wander here forever, but they are not evil, they are kin. They miss people. They swim up to kayaks to warn of danger, or simply to be near living warmth. Auku whispers soundlessly into the collar of his parka, "If you are here, protect me. I am of your lineage." And he closes his eyes again. He feels calmer. He is not alone. Sleep comes in short, vivid flashes, micro-naps. Auku falls into a well for 20 to 30 seconds. There, at the bottom of the well, it is summer. He sees the Uranga. He sees his mother cutting the fatty seal meat with an ulu knife, throwing pieces into a boiling cauldron. He feels that smell, the thick aroma of boiled meat, blood, and seaweed. His mouth fills with saliva. His younger brother laughs, playing with a husky puppy. Warm, safe. Plop. A sharp sound jerks him back to the icy reality. Auku starts with his whole body. His hand grabs the knife. What is it? His eyes scan the water. 5 meters from the side, ripples spread across the water. A fish. An ordinary polar cod jumped out of the water, escaping from someone, or just playing. There its silvery back flashed, going deep. Auku exhales loudly. His heart, which had jumped into his throat, slowly sinks back. His radar works. He woke up from the splash of a fish. It means he won't miss something more serious. He lies back on the skin, closes his eyes again, and falls back into the warm vision of home. Somewhere in the 3rd hour of drift, or the 5th, or the 1st, the final transformation occurs. Boundaries vanish. Auku ceases to feel where his body ends and the kayak begins. The wooden ribs of the frame become his ribs. The taut skin becomes his skin. The cold water outside the hole becomes his blood. The drifting ice becomes his bones. He is no longer a man in a boat, a foreign element fighting the elements. He dissolves. He himself becomes part of the ocean, a small warm drop in a huge cold body. This thought, which on shore would seem like madness, brings absolute peace here. If you are part of the ocean will not kill you. The ocean does not kill itself, it simply exists, and you exist with it in its rhythm, in its breath. This is the nirvana of the polar hunter. Auku sinks into the deepest phase of slumber. He dreams he is flying over the water with the gulls, quietly, peacefully. And suddenly, through the cotton of sleep, a sensation breaks through. Not a sound, not a visual image, but a tactile sensation. Cold, but not that uniform cold of the wind he is used to. It is a sharp, moist, pinpoint cold right on his face. Something wet and cold touched his right cheek, and this something is breathing, with a hot, foul smell of digested meat. The radar in Auku's brain explodes in red alert. It's not a spirit, nor the wind, nor a dream. He flings his eyes open instantly. And the first thing he sees 10 centimeters from his face, blocking out the sky,
is a black, wet leather nose and small black eyes looking at him with cold curiosity. The muzzle of a polar bear. Time stops. The world narrows to a single point, to that black, wet leather nose which is so close that Auku feels the warmth of the exhaled air on his cheek. The first question that arises in any normal person: from where? From where here, 50 kilometers from shore, in the middle of the ocean, did a land predator come? But Auku, even paralyzed with terror, knows the answer. The polar bear is not a land beast. His Latin name is Ursus maritimus, sea bear. It is the only mammal on Earth that is officially classified as marine, alongside whales and seals. For him, 50 kilometers of water is not an obstacle, it is a road. Bears are the greatest swimmers of the Arctic. They are capable of swimming hundreds of kilometers without stopping, rowing with their huge paddle paws. But more often, they travel as stowaways. They climb onto drifting ice floes and sleep on them, letting the currents carry them to new hunting grounds. This beast drifted on a neighboring ice field, slept until the wind brought him a scent. Not the scent of a human, humans smell weak. The scent of a seal. That very carcass Auku tied to the stern of his kayak. To the bear, Auku's kayak is just a floating plate of food. Auku sees every detail as if under a microscope. Adrenaline sharpens his vision to hallucinogenic clarity. He sees the beast's nostrils. They are huge, inflating like forge bellows. They draw in air. Sniff, sniff, sniff. The bear analyzes the scent. He sees the eyes, small, deep-set coal-black beads without whites. There is no malice in them, only cold, calculating interest. He sees the fur. In children's books, bears are drawn snow-white. That's a lie. Up close in the wild, the fur of an adult male is yellowish, the color of ivory or old dirty snow. It is wet, clumped into icicles. Water drips from it right onto the kayak deck. Drip, drip. The beast's maw is slightly open. Teeth are visible, yellow, terrifying fangs the size of an adult man's finger. The first impulse that shocks Auku's nerves is to scream, jump up, strike with the paddle, do something. That's the reptilian brain demanding action, fight or flight. But Auku does not move. He knows a scream is a signal of a victim. A wounded seal screams. A sharp movement is a signal of aggression. A paddle strike would only anger the half-ton giant, and there is nowhere to run. In the water, a man is no match for a bear. Auku does the only thing that can save his life. He commits violence against his own nature. He shuts off the instinct of self-preservation. He goes absolutely still. He stops breathing. He relaxes his facial muscles, turning his face into a mask. He becomes nobody. Neither human, nor rival, nor prey. He tries to become part of the kayak, a piece of wet wood. The bear draws in air once more, loudly, with a rasp. He senses the smell of a human, of sweat, of fear. But this smell mixes with the smell of rancid fat that saturates the boat. The bear is confused. What is before him? A strange, motionless creature. It doesn't run, doesn't attack. The beast stands on the edge of the neighboring floe, looming over the kayak. He is huge. His height at the shoulder is 1.5 meters. His weight is about 450 kilograms. He is the top of the food chain, the god of the Arctic. If he now, just out of curiosity, rests a paw on the kayak to touch the toy, the fragile frame of the boat will snap like a matchstick, and Auku will end up in the water. And the story will end. A second passes, 2, 5. For Auku, it is an eternity. Time stretches into thick rubber. He looks the bear straight in the eyes. That is breaking the rules of the animal world. Looking a predator in the eyes is a challenge. But the old grandfather taught otherwise. The bear is a human in another skin. He respects the strength of spirit. If you look away, you show fear. He will attack. If you look with malice, he will accept the challenge. He will attack. Be like ice, cold, empty, motionless. The bear does not eat ice, and Auku turns into ice. In his eyes there is no fear, only the emptiness of the ocean's reflection. The bear snorts, exhales sharply, drenching the hunter's face in a cloud of foul steam. The smell of rotten fish. He gets bored. This strange seal doesn't move. It's not tasty. The carcass of the real seal on the stern smells appetizing. But to reach it, he has to try, to break this wooden shell. Laziness. The bear is full. In summer, they are often full. The giant slowly pulls back, takes a step back. Auku feels this step not with his ears, but with his body. The ice floe sags under the beast's weight, sending out a wave. The kayak sways. Every step of the bear on the ice sounds like a dull strike on a huge drum. The beast turns his huge yellow wet backside to Auku. He walks heavily, pigeon-toed, to the other edge of the floe. There he stops, looks into the water, sees something in the depths, or just decided to cool off. The bear bunches up and slides into the water smoothly, almost without sound. Plop. Heavy splashes fly 3 meters high. The water closes over the yellow back. The beast vanishes into the black depths as suddenly as he appeared. Only ripples remain, swaying the kayak. Only then does Auku exhale. He pushes out of his lungs the air he held there for a lifetime. His lungs burn. In that same second, the recoil hits him. His hands begin to shake so hard that the paddle knocks against the kayak's sides. Tap, tap, tap. His heart, which stopped a minute ago, now tries to break through his ribs. Boom, 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 boom. Blood roars in his ears like a waterfall. Auku convulsively grabs the harpoon, squeezing the shaft painfully. His eyes wildly dart across the water. Where is he? Will he surface under the boat to flip it? Bears do that with seals. But the water is empty, the ocean is calm. A thought thumps in his head. I could have died right now. One move of a paw and it's over. But the bear didn't attack. Why? Auku remembers the elders' words. The bear is a noble hunter. He doesn't kill for fun. He kills when he is hungry or when he has been insulted. I didn't insult him, and he was full. He was just passing by. This philosophy helps the mind accept what happened, but it doesn't matter to the body. Fear still sits in his chest, a hot, sticky, pulsing lump under the solar plexus. The warm stone on his belly feels cold compared to that inner heat. Sleep is gone. Auku cannot close his eyes. He sits up in the kayak as much as the tightness allows and peers into the twilight distance. An hour passes. The bear doesn't return. The ocean is empty and quiet again. Gradually, very slowly, the adrenaline burns out, leaving behind emptiness and leaden fatigue. Eyelids grow heavy again, this time from exhaustion. Auku fights himself. One more hour. Must wait. Make sure. Finally, he decides that the danger has passed. His breathing levels out. He settles his head on the sealskin again, closes his eyes, hoping to regain that saving half-sleep. It seems to him that the worst for today is behind him, that the limit of bad events for this night is exhausted. It is precisely at this moment, when his body begins to relax, that Auku hears another sound. A sound that freezes the blood more than the sight of any predator. It's not a growl, nor a splash. It's a sound from beneath himself. The sound of the world's fabric tearing. His ice floe, his reliable blue fortress, emits a death groan. Peace was an illusion. The ocean does not forgive relaxation. The sound doesn't come from the air. It is born below in the black depth. A deep, rumbling bass that makes the water itself vibrate. It's not just a crack of the surface, it's the sound of a mountain dying. The floe Auku is tied to doesn't just crack, it falls into pieces. The hunter feels this vibration through his whole body through the wooden keelson of the kayak, as if a subway train had passed under him. The floe trembles in agony. And suddenly, the finale. The blue, reliable slab that Auku checks so carefully splits in half with a disgusting, grinding sound. The crack runs diagonally, right through the place where the sleeping harpoon is driven. A second of chaos. Half of the floe, the one where the harpoon is, driven by the released energy, jerks sharply to the side. It is heavy. It gains inertia instantly.
The leather line, which had been hanging loose in the water, shoots into tension. A jerk. Auku's kayak is jerked forward with such force as if caught by a passing boat. The boat's nose buries into the water, the stern flies up, and Auku is thrown forward. He hits his chest against the deck, but his hands reflexively grab the sides. The kayak tilts to the starboard side critically, about 60 degrees. Icy, black water splashes over the cockpit rim. A few heavy drops strike his face. This cold acts like a slap, like a defibrillator discharge. Do not sleep, live. Auku reacts faster than he can think. It's the work of the cerebellum, honed by years of training. He makes a sharp move with his hips, a hip flick, the basis of kayaking. He throws his body weight in the opposite direction, compensating for the tilt. The kayak trembles, resists, but levels out, stands on an even keel, but the danger has not gone. The rope. It is taut as a steel string. It hums. The drifting fragment of ice pulls the kayak along, turning it sideways to the wave. This is the worst position. A side wave will flip him with the next strike. In Auku's head, two options flash. First, the knife. Grab the knife from his belt, cut the line. Pros: instant freedom. The kayak will level out. Cons: he will lose the harpoon. He will lose the anchor. There are still 6 hours of drift ahead. Without an anchor, he will be carried into the open ocean, where waves are as high as a house. By morning, he will be so far that he won't be able to return. That is a slow death. Second, fight. Paddle to the drifting mass, rip out the harpoon, regain control. Risk: he might not make it in time, he might flip. Time for thought, heartbeats. The flow recedes, 1 meter, 2, 3. The rope is at the limit. Another second, and it will either snap or rip a piece of the kayak's side out. Auku chooses the fight. He grabs the paddle, which by a miracle didn't slide into the water during the jerk. An explosive effort. He stabs the blade into the water and makes 2 powerful strokes. His back muscles, cooled during sleep, explode with pain. But the kayak jumps forward, catching up with the runaway. The rope slackens. Auku throws the paddle onto the deck. A risk, but he needs both hands. He grabs the slippery, greasy line and begins to haul it in with frantic speed. His wet hands slip, but he doesn't feel the cold. There it is, the edge of the flow. The kayak's nose strikes the ice. Bam! Auku reaches for the harpoon. It sits tight. Is it frozen in, or did it get jammed during the split? The hunter jerks. It doesn't move. The flow continues to rotate, trying to throw off the kayak. Auku growls through gritted teeth, an animal sound of effort. He braces a foot against a rib and pulls the shaft toward him with all his weight, risking dislocating his shoulders. Give it back! Give it back! The ice at the split point turned out to be loose, melted. That saves him. Crack! The harpoon flies out of the ice captivity with a fountain of chips, and Auku, by inertia, falls back on his back into the cockpit. The harpoon is in his hands. The sharp tip is centimeters from his own face. The kayak sways dangerously again, scooping water over the side, but it is free. Auku quickly sits up, restoring balance. He breathes raspily, greedily, swallowing the frosty air. 1. Inhale. 2. Inhale. 3. His hands shake, but he has the harpoon. Okay, alive. But it's too early to relax. He is alone in the ocean again, without a tether. The current is already catching him. He must find a new home. Quickly, before the adrenaline fades and the paralyzing recoil sets in, Auku turns his head, scanning the space. That one, about 20 meters to the left. The bluish mass looks strong, monolithic. Auku grabs the paddle, rows. Movements are sharp, jagged, but effective. He paddles up. No more long ceremonies.
He strikes the edge of the floe with the paddle. The sound is resonant, hard, without cracks. Good. He takes the harpoon again. A swing, a strike. Metal enters the ice. A second strike for certainty. A third out of anger. It sits dead fast. He quickly ties the knot. Raven's head. His fingers remember. His fingers do it themselves while the brain is still in shock. He checks the tension. It holds. Only now, when the kayak again softly sways in the shadow of the new wall, does Auku allow himself to exhale. He slowly, carefully lies back on the skins. He is shivering. A large tremor shakes his whole body. That is the remains of the stress leaving. His heart thumps so hard it echoes in his heels. He looks at the sky. It is still pale, indifferent. He understands that tonight he could have died twice. First the bear, now the ice. The ocean tried to kill him in different ways, with cunning and with brute force, but he is alive. His kayak is intact, his harpoon is with him. And then, while the shivering gradually subsides, a strange, almost solemn thought surfaces in his mind. It's not an accident. It's not just bad luck. It's an ordeal, an initiation. The spirits of the ocean, those very tornate, were testing him to see if he is worthy to be called a hunter, or if he is just a boy who stole his father's boat. Can he survive alone without help when the world collapses? Auku whispers into the darkness, addressing the invisible judges. I managed. I am worthy. I am here. And he feels that something has changed inside. That sticky childhood fear that had sat in his belly since the departure has vanished. It evaporated along with the sweat. In its place came another feeling, cold, heavy, calm, calculation. Now he knows he can manage. He knows the price of his reaction. He is no longer playing at being a hunter. He has become one. The ice can crack again. The bear can return. Let it. He is ready. Auku adjusts the shifted hair blanket and checks the position of the hot stone. It is still warm. He closes his eyes. And this time, he doesn't try to doze like a seal. This time, he falls asleep for real, deeply. Not because he is careless, but because now he trusts his body. Now he knows his body will cope, even in sleep. His ears will listen. His skin will feel. His vestibular apparatus will maintain balance. The body remembered the lesson. The body became smarter than the head. And in this deep, deserved sleep into which he falls like a stone into water, visions begin to come to Auku. Not fragments of thoughts, not hallucinations, but real dreams. Strange, vivid, colored dreams that the Inuit call messages from Sedna, the mistress of sea animals living at the bottom of the ocean. In this deep, protected sleep, Auku's consciousness detaches from the body. Kayak, skins, ice, everything solid and heavy vanishes. He falls through the boat's bottom, but not into a cold death, but into another world. Around him is a blue void. No, it's not a void. It's a space saturated with life. The water glows. It's not sunlight. It's the light of millions of tiny creatures. Plankton. They shimmer like stardust, like galaxies dissolved in the water. Myriads of tiny green and blue lights circle in a slow, solemn dance around the body of the sleeping hunter. Auku looks down. The bottom is not visible. Down there is only an infinite velvety darkness receding for kilometers to the Earth's core. He looks up and sees the underside of his ice floe. From below, it looks not like a block of ice, but like an inverted mountain glowing with a ghostly emerald light. Long threads of seaweed, frozen into the ice centuries ago, phosphoresce, swaying in the current like the hair of a drowned woman. And in this shining temple, the masters appear. First, from the inky depth, a shadow surfaces. It stretches, takes shape, a narwhal. A huge male about 7 meters long. His skin is mottled like marble, but the main thing is his tusk. A straight, twisted horn pointing forward,
sharp as a spear piercing the sky. The narwhal swims up to Auku silently, without disturbing the water. He hovers opposite, moving only his pectoral fins. He looks at the man with a single eye. That eye is dark, moist, and frighteningly intelligent. There is no animal indifference in it. There is a primitive understanding, older than the human race. The narwhal does not open his maw, but Auku hears him. The voice sounds not in the ears, but right in the center of the skull. It resonates with the bones. You sleep well, hunter. Your heart beats steadily, but be ready. In the morning, the wind will change. It will come from the north, and it will be angry. Prepare. It is not a threat. It is a forecast, a gift. The narwhal slowly turns, waving his powerful tail, and dissolves into the blue. In his place comes another creature, a white spot, bright as a cloud on a sunny day. The beluga, the polar dolphin. She is not as stern as the narwhal. She is playful. She circles Auku in spirals. Her movement is smooth, fluid, as if without bones. She sings. High whistling sounds, trills, clicks. Phew, clee clee clee, tee. These sounds penetrate through the skin, vibrating in the chest, relaxing every tension, every knot of stress. The beluga's song is the lullaby of the ocean, a healing purity. Listening to it, Auku feels his consciousness grow even heavier, even calmer. He falls into a dream within a dream. And then, from the twilight, a third guest swims out, the seal. An ordinary ringed seal, of the kind Auku has caught hundreds of times. But this seal is not afraid. He swims right up close, looking directly into his face. Auku gazes into those large, black, moist eyes. A chill of recognition runs down his spine. These are not just the eyes of an animal. Human wisdom shines in them, a familiar squint, warmth. Auku understands. These are the eyes of his grandfather, the very one who taught him to tie knots and choose the ice, the one who departed to the land of the ancestors 2 years ago. The seal, his grandfather, touches Auku's cheek with his wet nose. The touch is absolutely real, warm and rough because of the vibrissae whiskers. His grandfather's voice sounds soft, like the rustling of pebbles in the surf. You are doing everything right, grandson. I saw your knot. I saw your fear before the bear. You stood your ground. I am proud of you. Continue sleeping. I will be near. I will swim around your ice floe and drive away the evil spirits. Sleep. Auku wants to answer, wants to hug his grandfather, but the current of the dream carries him further, deeper, to where she lives. The water around him darkens, becomes thick as oil, and from the abyss itself she rises. Sedna, the goddess of the sea, the mistress of all beasts, the mother of the depths. Is she huge or not? In the world of dreams, there are no sizes. She seems larger than the ocean, yet she fits before his eyes. Her hair is long, dark. It unfurls in the water like thick thickets of kelp, alive, moving. Her face is stern, broad, with tattoos on the chin like those of the old women of the tribe. But her eyes are 2 whirlpools. She lifts her hands, and Auku sees what the legends talk about. She has no fingers. Her limbs do not end in palms. From her severed wrists, from her flesh, animals are born. Small seals, walruses with tusks, whales. They swim out from her hands but remain part of her body. She is the source of life. Sedna looks at Auku. In her gaze there is no anger, but there is the weight of all the world's water. Her voice sounds like the hum of tectonic plates rubbing against each other on the bottom. Hunter, you have come to my home. You sleep on my water like a child in a cradle. You want to take my children, the seals, the whales, to feed your own. Do you have the right? The question hangs in the water, heavy as an anchor. Auku cannot lie. Here in the depths, lying is impossible. The soul is transparent. He answers with a thought, pure and resonant. Great Mother, I take only what my clan needs to survive the winter. I do not kill for sport. I do not waste the meat. I thank every animal that gives its life to me. I give it water before death.
I use everything: meat, fat, bones, skin. Nothing is wasted. Life flows into life. Sedna listens. Her seaweed hair calms. She slowly nods. You speak the truth. Your heart is clean of greed. Then sleep, hunter. I allow it. I grant you passage, but remember the law. The sea gives and the sea takes. Respect this balance and you will return home. And in that moment, the transformation occurs. The blessing of the goddess changes the very essence of Auku. He feels a strange tickling sensation in his legs. His legs, cramped in the tight kayak, suddenly fuse together. The bones change shape, the skin becomes thick and smooth. His legs turn into a powerful, flexible seal tail. His arms shorten, fingers vanish, turning into flat, strong flippers. His lungs expand, becoming capable of holding air for hours. He is no longer human, he is a ringed seal. And this feeling is wonderful. The cold has vanished, the clumsiness has vanished. Auku makes a stroke with his tail and flies like an arrow through the water. Easily, without effort, he feels every vibration of the ocean with his whole body. He catches up with a school of silvery fish, playing with them. He sees every scale. He is at home. He was always here. Water is his element. Land is a foreign place. He wants to stay here forever in this infinite dance. But suddenly a pain, a sharp, acute pain in the chest, a burning. The beast's instinct screams, "Air! I need air!" The oxygen supply has ended, and Auku seal rushes upward toward the light, toward the surface. He pierces the water, tearing the film of sleep. Faster, faster, the lungs are about to explode. Auku flings his eyes open. He takes a convulsive, deep breath, filling his lungs with the icy, stinging air. It is not a dream, it is reality. He is in the kayak. Around him are white ice floes, black water, and a pale, high sky. He is alive, he is human. He has arms and legs, but his heart is pounding as if he has just surfaced from a kilometer's depth. Auku slowly exhales, calming his breathing. He looks around. The world has changed. The light has become different, golden, harsh. Dawn has already arrived. But inside him, the feeling remained. The vivid physical sensation that he was there, under the water, in the halls of Sedna. It was not just a play of imagination of a tired brain. It was a journey, an initiation. Grandfather told the truth. When you first sleep in a kayak, Sedna comes to you. She looks into your soul and decides whether the sea will accept you or reject you. Auku looks at his hands. They tremble, but not from the cold. It seems she accepted. He raises his eyes to the horizon. The night is over. Auku survived his first night in the ocean, and he will never be the same again. Waking up in the ocean is not like waking up in bed. There is no alarm clock here, no smooth transition. The first thing Auku feels, tearing himself away from the depths of Sedna's dreams, is the cold. But not that dangerous, bone-chilling cold he feared in the evening. This is a different cold, sharp, stinging, invigorating. It bites his face. Auku tries to open his eyes, but his eyelashes are stuck together. He runs his mittened hand over his face and feels a crunch. He opens his eyes and the world flashes white. Frost is everywhere. During the night, the moisture from his breath settled on the fur of his hood, on the edges of the hair blanket, on his eyebrows and mustache. Millions of tiny ice crystals sparkle in the sun. Auku looks like a snowdrift, like a living snowman sitting in a boat. He shakes the ice from his eyelashes and smiles with cracked lips. This frost is a good sign. It is proof of life. It means his inner stove worked properly all night. His body generated heat, his breath was hot. He lived while he slept. Now, the system's diagnostics, the most important moment of the morning. Auku, without changing his posture, tries to move his toes inside the fur boots. Big toe, pinky toe, they move. He feels the grass insole. There is numbness, but it is just stagnant blood, not frostbite. Hands. He clenches and unclenches his fists under the blanket. Joints click, but they obey. His neck is so stiff, it feels as if it is turned to stone. Auku slowly sits upright with a groan. His spine responds with a dry crunch. Vertebra by vertebra, straightening after 6 hours in the fetal position. His back muscles are stiff like wooden ropes. His shoulders ache, but it is a living pain. Auku begins a warm-up. You can't move much in the cramped kayak, but he rotates his shoulders, tilts his head right and left, stretching the frozen ligaments. Blood begins to run faster, chasing away the remains of sleep. Inspection of the territory. The world around has changed. The ice floes are still here, but their dance has changed its pattern. That large mass with a sharp peak that was on the left yesterday is now drifting on the right. The ice field has reshuffled its cards. Auku looks at the sun's position and the landmarks on the distant shore. The mountain peaks are barely visible in the haze. He turns on his internal navigator, calculates. During the night, the current has dragged his ice floe about 3 kilometers to the southwest. That is good. It is a favorable drift. He hasn't been carried out into the open ocean. On the contrary, he has shifted along the coastline toward rich hunting grounds. The ocean has been kind to him. The sun has risen higher, pulling away from the horizon line. The light has changed. Yesterday it was crimson, unsettling. Today it is liquid gold, a yellow, warm, life-promising light. Rays break through the bands of morning mist, creating giant pillars of light resting on the water. Diamond dust hangs in the air. It is incredibly beautiful. Auku, accustomed to the harsh aesthetics of the north, freezes for a second, forgetting the cold. He looks at this light and feels a wave of hot, sincere gratitude. He survived the night. He didn't flip. The bear left. The ice held. He is alive. The silence of the night is broken by the sounds of the morning. The ocean wakes up. Above his head, cutting the air with white wings, gulls circle. Their cries are loud, greedy, joyful. They found a school of fish. To the right, a splash is heard. An eider has dived. And somewhere far away, on the edge of audibility, a powerful trumpeting sound resonates. A fountain of steam shoots up over the water. Auku peers out, shading his eyes from the sun with his palm. Yes, there it is. Black, shiny as wet obsidian. The back appears from the water. A bowhead whale, a giant. It swims slowly and with dignity along the edge of the ice, filtering the water. Auku's heart skips a beat. Perhaps it is the same whale that came to his dream along with the narwhal. The boundary between dream and reality here is as thin as morning ice. The time for the ritual has come. A hunter's breakfast is not just food. It is a communion. Auku takes a piece of ukola, dried reindeer meat, from the waterproof bag. It is hard as wood. He bites off half, with difficulty chewing the tough fibers. The taste is salty, concentrated. The taste of energy. He does not eat the second half of the strip. He takes it in his hand and throws it overboard into the dark water. Plop. The meat slowly sinks, going into the depths. Kiana, Sedna, Kiana, Tornit, Auku whispers. Thank you. You protected me tonight. Accept this gift. Somewhere down there, a fish or a crab will grab this little piece. The circle will close. Reciprocity. The law of the tundra and the sea. You cannot only take, you must give. Now, the assessment of resources. Auku checks the kayak. Dry. There is no water in the hold. The skin is intact. The seams have not opened. The paddles are in place. He has knocked the ice off the blades. The harpoon is at hand. The tip is razor sharp. There are water supplies in the flask. All systems are normal. He can continue the hunt or return home. Auku reflects. He already has one seal tied to the stern. It is a good catch. This meat and fat will be enough for his family to live full lives for a week. He is tired. His body aches. The thought of the warm hearth and soft skin in the Yaranga is as tempting as a siren's song. The current is favorable. The wind has died down. By evening, he could be home. No one would judge. He caught a beast. He spent the night at sea, a hero. Auku looks at the horizon, toward where the shore is hidden behind the fog. He imagines his mother, who surely did not sleep tonight listening to the wind. He imagines his brothers. But then he looks at his hands, at the harpoon. Stubbornness rises within him. If he returns now, he will always know the truth about himself. He will be the one who fled, the one who feared the second night, the one who was satisfied with little. 1 seal is just food. 2 seals are a reserve. 3 are wealth. Auku inhales the frosty air with his full chest. No, he will stay 1 more night or 2. How much time will it take to load the kayak until the sides sink to the very waterline? He is no longer a boy playing men's games. He is a real hunter, the one whom Sedna has accepted. Auku reaches decisively for the knot on the ice floe. His fingers, already warm, easily handle the raven's head. 1 tug on the free end, and the knot falls apart. The line falls into the water. The connection is broken. Auku pushes off with his paddle from the ice wall that was his home tonight. "Thank you, Brother Ice," he nods to the blue mass. The kayak slides across the smooth water, cutting through the reflection of the sun. Auku makes the first stroke, strong and confident. The kayak responds with a jump. The hunter's eyes begin their habitual scan of the water's surface, searching for signs of life. And suddenly, his gaze catches a dark spot about 100 meters ahead. A small flat ice floe, and on it, a dark, glistening silhouette shaped like a cigar. A ringed seal. It lies on its side, exposing its fatty flank to the morning sun. It warms itself, relaxed. It does not see the kayak approaching from the direction of the sun. Auku's hand, on its own, without a thought, rests on the shaft of the combat harpoon. Breathing slows. All thoughts of home, sleep, and the cold vanish. Only the target remains. The hunt has begun. But that is an entirely different story. While Auku slept, swaying on the waves of the icy abyss, processes were occurring inside his body that modern medicine long considered impossible. We are used to thinking that humans are fragile, tropical creatures, unsuited to the cold. But the experience of the Inuit proves the opposite. The human body is a perfect survival machine. Most of us have simply forgotten how to turn on the emergency mode. Let's break down exactly what was happening with the hunter's physiology during those 6 hours. The first miracle is the brain. That very state of half-sleep in which Auku found himself has a scientific name: unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. For a long time, it was believed that only dolphins, whales, and some birds performing transoceanic flights were capable of this. They need to surface for air or keep their formation. Therefore, they sleep in turns. The left hemisphere sleeps, the right is awake, and vice versa. But recent studies by neurophysiologists have confirmed, in humans, this ancient ability has not disappeared. It is simply dormant. In conditions of mortal danger, when the price of a mistake is life, Auku's brain activated this relic mechanism. While one hemisphere plunged into a deep phase, recovering strength and processing images, those same dreams of Sedna, the second remained in watchdog mode. It controlled the tone of the back muscles for balance and analyze sounds. The Inuit developed this skill from childhood, calling it the seal's sleep. Science has only confirmed the wisdom of the tundra. Second, temperature. If we were to measure Auku's core body temperature in the middle of the night, the thermometer would show alarming figures. Not the usual 36.6, but 35 or even 34.5 degrees. In a hospital, this would be called mild hypothermia, but here it is a controlled adaptation. The organism intentionally lowered the thermostat settings. Why heat the body to the norm if it is below zero all around? It is too expensive in terms of calories. The body shifted to energy-saving mode. Blood drained from the skin and arm muscles, which is why they became so numb, concentrating in the core around the heart, lungs, and brain. Auku was not freezing.
he was simply idling. Third, and this is the main secret of the northern peoples, brown fat. In a city dweller, fat is usually white. It simply stores energy and hangs as extra weight. In Auku, born and raised in the cold, the body preserved large reserves of brown adipose tissue. This is a unique organ. Under a microscope, its cells look different. They are packed with mitochondria, the cell's energy stations. Brown fat does not store energy, it burns it. It works like a built-in heater. This tissue is strategically located around the neck, between the shoulder blades along the spine, and around the kidneys. All night, while Auku lay motionless, his brown fat oxidized lipid reserves, releasing pure heat directly into the blood going to the brain. It is a chemical heater that does not require muscle movement. Fourth, breathing. Did you notice how rarely Auku breathed? It is half the normal rate. This is not a coincidence. The main source of heat loss in the Arctic is not the skin. It is covered by clothing, but the lungs. We exhale hot, moist air heated by our bodies and inhale icy air. Every exhalation is a release of energy into the atmosphere.
By slowing his breathing, Auku's body reduced these losses by half. At the same time, every breath was as efficient as possible. The lungs opened completely, taking all the oxygen from the air. This is called increasing oxygen extraction. Fifth, metabolism. The hunter's metabolism slowed down by 20 to 30%. Digestion stopped. The growth of nails and hair, skin renewal, all secondary processes were put on pause. All resources were thrown into a single task, nourishing the brain and the heart's work. Biologists compare this state to the hibernation of bears. Only a bear goes into this mode for months, while Auku learned to enter it for a few hours and exit with a snap of his fingers, as we saw at dawn. And last, the hormonal cocktail. In Auku's blood, all night long, a mixture simmered that would kill an office worker. High levels of adrenaline kept the nervous system toned, preventing it from falling into a too deep, paralyzing sleep. And cortisol ensured a constant flow of glucose into the blood, so the brain would not starve. But it was not that bad stress that causes heart attacks. Psychologists call this eustress, useful stress, a state of mobilization rather than panic. It was precisely what allowed Auku to react instantly to the splitting of the ice floe. His nerves were taut like violin strings, ready to sound but not to break. And finally, the sensory filter. The sleeper's ears worked like a complex neural network algorithm. The brain sorted sounds, monotonous splashing, the hum of wind, creaking, safety folder, ignore. Sharp click, splash, a beast's breath. Alarm folder, immediate awakening. This is not a conscious decision. It is a setting written into our genes over millions of years of evolution, from when our ancestors slept on the savannah full of predators. Auku simply did not forget the password to this program. The conclusion is simple and surprising. What Auku accomplished is not a miracle or spirit magic. It is a demonstration of what the Homo sapiens body is truly capable of when it lives in harmony with an aggressive environment rather than hiding from it. We are all descendants of survivors. In each of us sleeps this ancient hunter, capable of slowing the heart and warming himself with the power of thought. We are simply warm, and we sleep too soundly to wake him. But nature is cruel. Even perfect adaptation does not give a 100% guarantee. The ocean is a casino where luck sometimes turns away, even from the most prepared players. Not everyone managed this test. There were those whose heaters went out before dawn. There were those who did not return. Auku's story is a story of victory. But in the Arctic, every victory has a price. And not everyone pays that price, but someone necessarily does. The ocean is not a store where you pay with money. It is a temple where you pay with risk. Every year, when the ice retreated north, some of the hunters did not return. Sometimes the kayak was found drifting, empty or overturned. Sometimes the body was found, frozen in the ice. And sometimes absolutely nothing was found.
as if the person had simply dissolved into the white silence. The sea took its due. It was not a tragedy in our sense. It was statistics, the cruel accounting of survival. In Auku's memory live 3 shadows, 3 stories that he replays in his head every time before sleep as a warning. Shadow 1, Kuana. It happened 3 years ago. Kuana was only 17 years old, a peer of Auku. It was his first solo trip into the big water. He was a brave guy, the best runner in the village, strong as a young reindeer. He knew how to throw a harpoon at 30 paces and hit a seagull's eye, but he lacked the main skill of sleep. His kayak was found after 24 hours of searching. It was drifting only 20 kilometers from the shore. Kuana sat inside, alive, but his eyes, there was emptiness in them. He did not perish physically, but his spirit was broken. Later, stuttering, he recounted that he simply could not close his eyes. As soon as silence fell, fear squeezed his throat with an icy hand. Every splash of water seemed like a monster's attack. The creaking of ice sounded like the voice of the dead. Toward morning, his brain, exhausted by insomnia, began to spawn monsters. He saw hands reaching out from the water, heard calls. He screamed so much that he lost his voice. He was saved by a chance fishing boat. Kuana never sat in a kayak again. Even the sight of the sea made him tremble. He became a bone carver, a good craftsman sitting on solid ground. But the shadow of that fear remained forever in his gaze. The ocean rejected him. Shadow 2, Inuit. This is the other extreme. Inuit was 50 years old, a hunter with 30 years of experience. His face was black from polar tan and scars. He slept in the kayak hundreds of nights. He knew the ocean better than his own wife. He read the ice like we read a book. It seemed nothing could happen to him. Experience is the best armor. But one day, he simply did not return. His kayak was found a week later stuck in the ridges, overturned. Inside it was dry, things were in place, but Inuit was gone. What happened? No one will ever know. Perhaps a sudden squall flipped the boat when he was sleeping too soundly. Perhaps an orca struck from below. Or perhaps the heart simply stopped in his sleep, quietly and painlessly. The sea leaves no witnesses and writes no reports. On the shore remained a wife and 3 children. The eldest son, a 13-year-old boy, stood on the shore looking at his father's empty kayak. He did not cry. He simply watched. And a year later, he himself sat in that kayak, took his father's paddle, and rowed, because he had no choice. It was his destiny. The destiny of a hunter's son to take the place of the deceased. The circle closed. Shadow 3, Ava, the most terrifying story. Ava was never found at all. Not the kayak, nor the paddles, nor the body, nor even a fragment. He left one sunny morning, kissed his wife, and said, "I'll be back in 3 days when I filled the hold," and he vanished. They searched for him for 2 weeks. Dozens of kayaks combed the waters of the bay. Relatives climbed the cliffs with spyglasses. Nothing. Absolute emptiness. As if the ocean had simply opened its mouth and swallowed him whole, leaving not even a crumb. The elders in the village whispered, "Sedna took him. That means he broke a taboo, killed a beast, and didn't give it water. Or he was greedy, or boasted of his strength. The goddess does not forgive pride. Perhaps it's true, a mystical retribution, or perhaps just an accident. A giant rogue wave, a split in an iceberg that covered him with 1,000,000 tons of ice. The difference is small, the result is the same. His name is now spoken in whispers. Dry statistics speak louder than any legends. In Auku's small village, where only 200 people live, 5 hunters have died in the last 10 years. About 30 men regularly went out to sea. 5 out of 30. 1 in 6. Imagine this lottery. Imagine a job where 1 in 6 employees does not return home over the course of a decade. The risk is huge. It is beyond limits. Any insurance agent would call it madness, but these people have no choice. The alternative to risk is hunger. The Arctic is cruel. It offers no compromises. You either hunt, risking a quick death in the water, or you stay home and die slowly from starvation, watching your children weaken. Between a quick death and a slow one, they chose the quick one, and in that lay their greatest choice. Auku has his own ritual. Before every major journey, when the kayak is already equipped, he stands at the edge of the surf. He looks at the gray waves and quietly utters the names with only his lips. Kuana, Inuit, Ava, Tuluk, Sakia, the names of those who left and did not return. I remember you, he whispers to the wind. I carry your memory in my heart. You are part of this sea. Protect me as I would have protected you. This is not superstition, it is respect. Respect for danger, respect for those who paid the highest price for the life of the tribe. He takes them with him to sea, like an invisible crew. And every time Auku closes his eyes in the kayak in the middle of the night, he knows the truth. He knows he might not wake up. The rope might fray against the ice. The ice floe might split less fortunately than yesterday. The bear might be hungry. The heart might simply tire of beating in the icy water. He knows this, but he closes his eyes anyway. He still forces himself to sleep, because fear in the Arctic is an unaffordable luxury. Panic burns calories faster than running. Doubt kills more surely than frost. There is no room for luxury here. There is only the cold, naked necessity of survival. But the shadows are only one side of the coin. There are other stories. Stories of those who returned year after year, who grew gray at sea, whose face became like an old parchment inscribed by the winds. Those who learned to negotiate with the ocean and became living legends. Those they call masters. If the ocean were only a killer, people would have left these shores thousands of years ago. The history of the Arctic is not just a martyrology of the fallen, it is a chronicle of victories. There were those who did not just survive, those who won not once, not 10, but hundreds of times. They turned deadly risk into routine and fear into fuel. They became legends while still alive. Their names were passed from mouth to mouth by the fires like the names of heroes. Their techniques were studied by young hunters trying to repeat the impossible. They were the masters of the kayak. Legend 1, Atanata. Translated, his name means the one who sails with spirits. This man was the patriarch of the sea. He hunted for 60 years in a row. He first sat in a kayak as a 13-year-old boy and went out to sea for the last time at 73, when his hands already resembled the dry roots of an old tree. They say that in his life, he slept in a kayak for more than thousands of nights. Thousands of nights over the abyss. That's almost 3 years of continuous drifting. When the young asked for his secret, Atanata would smile with his toothless mouth and say, "I am not afraid of the ocean. Fear makes you rigid, and what is rigid breaks. I am part of the water. When I fall asleep, I do not lose control. I simply hand the helm to the ocean. I trust it. If my time has come, the ocean will take me, and I agree. If not, it will rock me and spit me back onto the shore." It was absolute humility that granted absolute invulnerability. Irony of fate. The man who could have died 1,000 times in the icy water died in his bed at 89 years old of old age, surrounded by great-grandchildren. The ocean never managed to take him. Legend 2, Nalungiak. This name is spoken with special awe because Nalungiak was a woman. In the Inuit world, hunting is men's business, but the Arctic sometimes breaks the rules. Nalungiak went out to sea at 15 after a terrible storm took her father and both brothers. The family was left without a provider. Hunger looked through the windows of their yaranga. She had no choice. She took her father's kayak, which was too big for her. She took the heavy paddle and went into the fog. The village remained silent, considering her dead. She returned a week later. 3 fat seals were being towed behind her kayak. Since then, she hunted for 30 years on par with the men. She had her own philosophy of sleep, different from the men's. She said, A woman falls asleep in a kayak more easily than a man. A man is used to sleeping deeply, like he's been killed. A woman mother is used to sleeping sensitively. She hears the infant's breathing through her sleep. For me, the ocean is a big child. I hear how it tosses and turns. I hear when it cries. Therefore, I wake up before trouble comes. Men sleep deeper, they die more often. Perhaps in this cruel female wisdom lay a truth inaccessible to men. Legend 3. The Ghost Kayak. In the National Museum of Greenland, an exhibit is kept near which people fall silent. It is an old kayak. It is about 300 years old. The leather on it has turned black with time. The frame has dried out. But the main thing is not that. On its wooden cockpit rim, notches are carved. Small, neat nicks made with a knife. Scientists counted them. 487 notches. Each of them is a night spent in the open sea. Almost 500 nights, more than a year and a half of life on the water. We do not know the owner's name. It was erased from people's memory, but this kayak remained as a monument, as physical proof that the human being is the most adaptive creature on the planet, that one can live where one cannot live. How did they do it? The masters didn't just rely on luck. They had techniques, secret psychophysiological tricks that allowed them to cheat nature. Technique 1. Seal breathing. Masters taught the young a rhythm that switched the nervous system to rest mode. Breathe in a square, but with a long tail, they said. 4 heartbeats, inhale. 4 beats, hold your breath. 8 beats, a slow whistling exhale through clenched teeth. And again. This 4, 4, 8 rhythm is not a coincidence. A long exhale slows the heart rate. Holding accumulates carbon dioxide, which calms the brain. After 10 minutes of such breathing, the body relaxes. Even if the mind screams with fear, you enter a trance compulsorily. Technique 2. Sleeping with open eyes. The highest level. Some hunters learn to sleep without closing their eyelids completely. The eyes remained half open, but the pupils defocused, moving upward. The brain disconnected the visual cortex from consciousness. The person stopped seeing the image, but left the motion sensor turned on. If something dark appeared in the peripheral vision, a bear, an orca's fin, or something white, the crest of a wave, the alarm signal broke the sleep instantly. It looked eerie, a sleeping person with rolled back eyes, but it saved lives. Technique 3. Tether to life. The simplest and cruelest insurance. Experienced hunters, when falling asleep, tied a thin leather cord to their wrist. The other end of the cord was attached to the harpoon shaft or the paddle lying across the sides. Why? In sleep, muscles relax. A hand might falter, let go of the paddle. If the paddle began to slide into the water, the cord tightened. A sharp pain in the wrist woke the hunter a fraction of a second before catastrophe. It was an alarm clock that delivered a shock. All this science of survival was built on one simple thought. The masters told the young, the ocean is not the enemy, not a killer. It is the great examiner. It asks you 3 questions every time. Are you worthy to live? Are you ready to trust? Are you capable of changing? If your answer is yes, he will accept you. You will become his adopted child. He will give you food and the way home. If your answer is no, he will take you. But it is not cruelty, it is justice. In the pure world of ice, there is no place for the weak and the deceitful. Auku heard these stories from childhood, sitting at the feet of the elders. Back then, they seemed like fairy tales to him, beautiful legends about heroes of the past. But now, after his first real night in the kayak, as the sun gilds his weathered face, he understands them differently. Not with his mind, but with his body, his bones, his aching back, and a heart that has slowed its pace. He passed the exam. The ocean asked him questions, and he answered correctly. Sedna accepted him. Now he knows he can return here again and again. He will sleep on the waves, as if in a cradle, until it is his time to become one of the shadows or one of the legends. Today, in the 21st century, the Arctic silence sounds different. It is torn by the roar of powerful Japanese Yamaha outboard motors. In Greenland, fewer than 100 hunters remain who regularly sleep in kayaks the old-fashioned way. Progress is ruthless. Fiberglass boats have replaced wooden frames. Kevlar has replaced bearded sealskin. GPS navigators have replaced the reading of stars and currents. Satellite phones have replaced prayers to the spirits. Young Inuit move to big cities, to Nuuk, to Copenhagen. They work in air-conditioned offices, sell smartphones, learn English. For most of them, the kayak is a dusty museum exhibit. A beautiful but useless story told to rich tourists for money. But this fire has not gone out completely. There are the last masters. These are elders in their 70s or 80s. Their faces look like maps of sea currents. Their hands are twisted by arthritis. But they still go out to sea in their old kayaks, made by the hands of their grandfathers with hand-forged harpoons. They sleep in the middle of the ice, curled up under skins. Not because they must, they have pensions and warm homes, but because they cannot do otherwise. It is their life, their identity, their religion. Without the ocean, without that icy breath in the face, they feel like ghosts. On shore, they are old men. In the kayak, they are kings. And it seems their stubbornness is bearing fruit. In the last 10 or 15 years, something amazing has been happening, a revival. Young Greenlanders, sated with the comfort of civilization, are beginning to search for their roots. They feel an emptiness that the internet cannot fill. They create traditional Kayak kayaking clubs. They learn to build boats without nails. They learn to do the Eskimo roll. Not for survival, but for connection. Connection with ancestors, with the land, with themselves. Here is the story of one of them. His name is Malik. He is 23 years old. He grew up in the capital, studied programming in Denmark. He wears hoodies and listens to hip-hop. But 3 years ago, he first launched his grandfather's old kayak, which was gathering dust in the garage. He sat in the tight cockpit, took the narrow paddle in his hands, and made a stroke. And, as he says, the world clicked into place. I felt that this was mine, Malik says. It wasn't learning, it was remembering. Thousands of generations of my ancestors made this movement. It is written in my DNA, and now it's me. Last summer, Malik did what his peers did not dare to do. He went out to sea and spent a night in a kayak alone. It was terrifying, he admits. I thought I would die of cold or fear. But when I woke up at dawn, when I saw the sun lighting up the ice, I cried with happiness. I found myself. I stopped being just a user. I became part of the world. Science became interested in this phenomenon. Modern physiologists, geneticists, and anthropologists travel north to study people like Malik and his grandfather. They want to understand where the limit of human capability lies, how the brain learns unihemispheric sleep, how the psyche endures sensory deprivation. Research yields striking results. It turns out the Inuit are genetically different from us. Over thousands of years of living in the Arctic, they have undergone mutations in the genes responsible for fat metabolism and thermoregulation. Their bodies have learned to produce more heat. This is not just culture, it is evolution in action. The ocean has changed them at a cellular level. What can Auku's story teach us, dwellers of warm apartments? What can we take with us from this icy night? First, the human being is a creature of incredible plasticity. We are capable of adapting to conditions that seem incompatible with life. If there is a need, the organism will find a way. We are stronger than we think. Second, fear can be tamed. Not killed, not ignored, that is foolish, but tamed. To make it an advisor, not a master, to turn panic into caution. Third, sleep is not just turning out the light, it is a complex adjustment tool that can be controlled. You can rest even in the center of a storm if you trust yourself. And fourth, connection with nature is not bookish romance, it is a necessity. The Inuit did not love the ocean in our sentimental sense. They understood it, respected it, listened to it, and therefore survived. We have forgotten how to listen to the world, but this skill still lives within us. Today, most of us will fall asleep in soft beds under a secure roof in total safety. We don't need to tie ourselves to the bed so as not to drift away. We don't need to fear bears. But somewhere out there, far in the north, right now, in the cold waters of the Arctic, there are still hunters who close their eyes in narrow kayaks. They listen to the splash of the waves, feel the swaying, and they trust. They trust the ocean, their body, and the spirits of their ancestors. Imagine this for the last time. You are in the kayak. All around is infinite ice, shining in the moonlight. Above your head is a sky strewn with myriads of stars that you can almost reach with your hand. Beneath you are kilometers of dark, calm water. Your body feels warm. You are safe. You feel how the ocean lifts you and lowers you, up and down, like a huge, kind cradle. The ice sings you a song as old as the earth itself, and you fall asleep slowly and deeply, without fear, because you are part of this world. Not above, not below, equal. You sleep the hunter's sleep, the sleep that gives strength, the sleep that gives life. Auku woke at dawn, alive, having become a man. The ocean accepted him, and that night was the first of hundreds that came after. But it always remained the most important, because it was the first.